What's up, guys? Welcome to our, what is this, number 6 episode of Fantasy Bruddas?
Number 6.
Yeah, that's my co-host, S. Billy, aka Still Phil. Say what's up.
What's good, everybody? Welcome to another installment of Fantasy Bruddas. Can't wait to get into what we got lined up for this evening.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick disclaimer, man. It's week 3 of fantasy football. Going into week 4. Don't panic. I have a team that's 0-3, but I'm literally probably third or fourth in I'm literally probably third or fourth in points, but every team I played has just gone off against me. So I think that
Don't accept bogus trades.
Don't accept bogus trades. Know that your team is gonna even out. This is a bell curve, okay? You might be at the shitty part of your bell curve, but it will even out. Don't lose faith in your team unless your team just isn't putting up points and just is actual trash. Anyway, this is what we're gonna get into for the show today. So we're gonna give our rankings of players via ESPN. We're gonna give a guy in the top 10 and then the top 11 through 20 at each position that we like this week based on matchup or just how they've been playing. Next, we're going to get into our start-em, sit-em, one player at each position to start, one player at each position to sit. We're going to get into our waiver wire pickups after that. And then lastly, we're going to wrap it up with our betting segment, trying to make you guys some money. I think I am winning right now record-wise against Sterling, but I'm not sure. We'll have to check at the end. So
Yeah, you're winning. You got me. I've been, let's just say if I would have been making bets, I'd been over.
Trash. All right. Let me see. So you want to get into your first guy at quarterback, or what you want to do?
Yeah, top 10. So we're going off the ESPN Fantasy rankings for week 4. A guy that, of course, Patrick Mahomes, he's been tearing it up. But, you got Patrick Mahomes at 1, Aaron Rodgers at 2, which I honestly don't like Aaron Rodgers at 2 versus Buffalo. Buffalo showed that they can get after the quarterback last week and, made life hard for Mr. Kirk Cousins. But a guy that I'm really high on this coming week is Deshaun Watson. He's right now trending at QB number 6. He's been trending up ever since that first week debacle in New England. He's been, his last 2 games have just been amazing. He's thrown for 2 touchdowns the last 2 games, over 300 yards passing, also adding an average of 40 yards on the ground. I think last year he completely torched the Colts. Don't get me wrong, the Colts defense is looking a lot more stingy and a lot better this year, but I look for Deshaun Watson to put up big numbers. Definitely getting over 300 yards passing, and hopefully over 50 yards rushing, and I think he's going to have multiple touchdowns, maybe 2 through the air, 1 on the ground. So if you have him, of course you're playing him. In daily fantasy, either DraftKings or FanDuel, I definitely like him as well. That's my guy to keep an eye on, and I think he's going to be finish at least QB 1, 2, or 3 this coming week.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we didn't coordinate our picks before this show because I actually went with Deshaun Watson as well. And I was looking to last year, too, because he did torch the Colts last year. And I think after this injury that he had last year that ended his season, I think he needed a few games to get under his belt. And I think with, 3 games, him looking better each and every game, just getting that connection back with Hopkins and his receivers that he has, I think this will be his coming out party and be his overall best game of the year. So I'm rolling with Watson too in my top 10. I'll get into my 11 through 20 guy that I actually really like, and that's Case Keenum versus the Chiefs.
You go with the matchup.
Yeah, I'm going with the matchup this time. He's actually ranked number 17 behind the likes of Ryan Tannehill and even Ryan Fitzpatrick at Chicago. I hate that matchup. But anyways, I just see every game that the Chiefs have been in, it's been virtually a shootout. They get a lot of points scored on them, and teams know that they got to put up points to keep up with the Chiefs. So I see them throwing the ball a lot, getting the play action pass involved, and look for Demaryius Thomas to have a bounce back game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Case Keenum. I've been high on Case Keenum since the start of the year. He's kind of had a rocky start. They had a pretty rainy game out there in Baltimore this past weekend where he struggled, but I think he definitely turns it around. Are they playing at home? I think they're playing at home.
Who?
Yeah, they're playing
Yeah,
at
they're
home
playing at
this
home,
week,
yeah.
and against that vulnerable KC defense, I think Case Keenum has the potential to light it up, as well as Demaryius Thomas. I have him in plenty of leagues, so let's go Demaryius.
Let's go.
Next, in my 11 through 20 guy that I've been high on, his matchup isn't favorable on paper, but with the amount of weapons and the has the number one running game in the NFL. I like Jared Goff. He's playing Minnesota at home. He torches any team at home. I'm not going to sit here and say Jared Goff is matchup proof, but with weapons like Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, not to mention Todd Gurley, I think he is almost matchup proof. Like, any defense is going to have trouble stopping him. It just matters when they get in the red zone. Are they going to throw it in, or is Todd Gurley going to rush it in? I think I actually have him in a few leagues. He's on waivers. So if you're looking for a flyer, you have Cam Newton on bye week, and Jared Goff's available on the waiver wire. I would take a shot, go grab Jared Goff, and definitely have a chance to put up some nice numbers.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about Goff because I don't know what Minnesota team we're going to get. I mean, I didn't think that I would see – I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw Buffalo was up like 20-something to 0 or whatever it was, and I'm just like, what happened to that great Minnesota team we saw the first 2 weeks? So either Minnesota's going to come out hungry and willing to prove a point, or we're going to see their true colors again on the road. Anyways, let's get into running backs. So, running back that I am super high on, and I think is going to have, because he always has great weeks, but I mean he always has good weeks, but I think he's going to have a great week, and that's Mr. Ezekiel Elliott. Last game,
I love Zeke.
He rushed the ball. And he hasn't rushed the ball over 20 times this whole year, and I think that's because they're trying to, maybe not run him into the ground too early. I see him getting above 20 carries this week.
Game.
It's a must-win game. He averaged 8 yards per carry, and to his accord, he had a bad game, and he did have a bad game. I mean, he stepped out of bounds on that one play that would have been like a 30-yard passing touchdown from Dak. That was a huge play. He fumbled in the end. Had some plays that were uncharacteristic of Zeke, like he wasn't all there. So look for him to bounce back and to respond like a great player does. And I see him. He probably will be top 2 or 3 back this week. So
yeah, I like it. I think he has a very favorable matchup. He's hungry.
Right, and they play the Lions.
He's hungry. He had some mind lapses, to say the least, in last week's game against Seattle. I think he's looking to prove himself. I think he's going to have a multiple touchdown game this week. Definitely over 100 yards rushing, and he's going to really establish himself, as one of the best backs in the league, as we already know he is. A guy I like in the top 10, I love his matchup. I actually think this one has the potential to get ugly, and for a running back, when games get ugly, they get the ball a lot, and that's Mr. Melvin Gordon. So Melvin Gordon, through 3 games, has 4 touchdowns. He hasn't cracked the century mark in rushing, but has had, in the first game of the season, he had 9 receptions for 102 yards. No touchdowns, but still remarkable. I think he has not cracked over 15 carries, mainly because Austin Eckler's just been amazing so far. But I think that's going to change. I think he's going to get 18 to 20 carries just because the game, in my opinion, is going to get a little out of hand. I see him getting at least 5 receptions. I really think he's going to have potential to break this game completely open. San Francisco, don't get me wrong, they I can't even lie. They're bruised, they're battered on both sides of the ball, offense, defense. I expect a lot of 3-and-outs from the San Francisco offense. Chargers are going to have tons of opportunities to score the ball. I like Melvin Gordon. If of course, if you have him, you're starting him. This is just more, just if you're going on a daily fantasy. These are guys that we really like, and these are guys that I feel like are sure things to have big weeks.
For sure. Well, I'll get into my 11 to 20 guy, and it's a guy I don't know if you're too high on him. He actually looks like one of Sterling's friends, but I'm going with Mr. Alex Collins, and because
who does he look like?
He looks like Boy B.
Don't play Boy B like that. He does not look like Bob.
I'm just playing. He just has dreads. But anyway, Alex Collins versus the Steelers. I like to see him get in the end zone. I think he's starting to catch his stride a little bit. Last game, he had 18 carries for 68 yards against a pretty stout Denver defense. Pittsburgh, they're not. Their defense has actually been not bad this year. It's actually shown up in the pass rush, and Bostic's making plays all over the field. Actually, and I guess he replaced Shazier, but I see Alex Collins getting loose a little bit, having like 100 yards total from scrimmage and at least one touchdown. So that's my guy in 11 to 20.
Yeah, there's some really good guys, 11 to 20. I think that have very favorable matchups. I'm just gonna touch on these guys real quickly, and then I'll go into my pick. Giovanni Bernard, Lamar Miller have great matchups. Lamar Miller torches the Colts. I mean, as Watson goes, Lamar goes. I really like Lamar Miller this week. I really like Giovanni Bernard this week. But my pick is actually at number 20, and that's Mr. Chris Carson. Chris Carson, I don't think he has a lot of talent, but he has a lot of heart. He runs hard. He finds the gaps. They're going to lean heavily on him, just like they did against the Cowboys. Granted, he doesn't get hurt this game. I think he has a decent game. I'm thinking over 80 yards and a touchdown, maybe over 100 yards from the line of scrimmage this week. I really do like Chris Carson. I think he has a chance at a big week. And, one guy that I actually forgot to mention is Mr. Phillip Lindsay. I think Phillip Lindsay against that KC defense, catching the ball out of the backfield, running in between tackles, I think he's in line for a great week, especially in PPR. So, I kind of gave you a 4-for-1 right there, but those are all guys I'm really high on.
From the ashes, Mr. Chris Carson has risen.
I know, right? I want to say in episode 4, we were just talking about how his fantasy relevance has pretty much died.
I mean, he had 6 carries the previous game for 24 yards. And then I think Penny, I don't know, but I think he out-rushed him. I don't know what Penny's exact numbers were. But then Carson gets the ball 32 times.
32 times for 100 yards and a touchdown. 2 receptions for 22 yards. I mean, they went from not using him at all to leaning. I mean, literally workhorse back. So I don't know.
And
what
they
Pete
got
Carroll's
the dub,
doing, but I guess they won the game, so I guess it makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get into these wide receivers, and I'm giving you a 2-for-1 as well at the receiver position in my top 10, and I'm saying Odell Beckham and DeAndre Hopkins finally have their coming out parties. I think that
I have them in all my leagues.
I say Odell and DeAndre Hopkins. The thing is, it's so crazy, man, because like players like Hopkins, Odell, Brown, they're having good years so far, and we're just like, it's not enough. It's not enough. And that's what comes to be expected when you're a great player. And I think that these are week 4. is when they start hitting that stride. And OBJ and Hopkins are going to have big weeks. Odell's playing New Orleans. We've seen them give up the big plays. And the Giants are going to be without Evan Ingram. So look for Odell to get a couple more targets his way. And DeAndre Hopkins, like we said, they're playing the susceptible Colts. I mean, the Colts have improved their defense a lot, but I don't know. I like Hopkins in this matchup to exploit. I guess he'd be going up against Malik Hooker, right? So I like Hopkins to get the better of that matchup and have a big week.
Yeah, I like both those guys a lot. Two guys I'm super high on this week. One is Mr. Julio Jones, and two is Mr. Keenan Allen. So Julio Jones kind of took the back seat to Mr. Calvin Ridley last week. Calvin Ridley just went ballistic. Matt Ryan was just gunning the ball all over the field, but you would think if Matt Ryan has close to 400 yards, or no, did he have over 400 yards passing? No, he had
Matt Ryan?
Yeah, Matt Ryan.
I think he did have over 400.
He did?
I think so.
You'd think if Matt Ryan had over 400 yards passing, that Julio would at least have over 100, right? Julio just had 6 targets for 5 receptions and 96 yards. A good day by any other receiver, but you'd think Julio would just have dominated. I think that a lot of pressure is going to be eased off Julio, and Julio is going to be able to get loose and finally find the end zone. I think the biggest knock on Julio is he doesn't score touchdowns. They still haven't figured out how to really utilize him in the red zone. Besides, Matty Ice has been with this guy how many years? 5-6 years, and they still haven't figured it out. But I expect big plays, and I think he actually gets one to the house. Maybe multiple, but I've been saying multiple for all the guys I'm picking, so I'm thinking 1 touchdown this time. And then Keenan Allen, I mean, very favorable matchup. I think he gets busy early. I mean, he could probably have over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown by halftime. I expect a really big game from Julio. Richard Sherman's out. I don't even know who they have as their second or third string corner, but whoever it is, he's probably going to be getting torched all day. So I really like Julio Jones and Keenan Allen.
For sure. Getting into my 11 through 20 guy, I'm going with Demaryius Thomas, as we said. I just like the matchup. I think there's going to be some plays to be made, and Thomas has been a little quiet recently. I think he's going to try to get on the same page with Keenum, how Emmanuel Sanders has been on the same page with Keenum, and I think we're going to see a touchdown out of Demaryius with a good yardage total, about 8 receptions. So that's my guy for 11 through 20.
I know what you're going to say when I pick this guy. I've been talking shit about this guy since preseason, but I think he's going to have a great week, and that's Mr. Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen has been a PPR machine. I mean, Kirk has been looking to him left and right. I mean, he has 32 receptions on the season. I repeat that, 32 receptions on the season for over 300 yards and a touchdown. Kirk is looking to him early and often. Even in a stinker game where they only put up 6 points, Thielen has 19 targets for 14 receptions and over 100 yards receiving. I think with the Rams, yes, their defense is good, but their corners are hurt. Peters and Talib went down last week with injuries, and I think if they do play, they're going to be a little bit hobbled. I think Adam Thielen is going to be a beast in the slot. I expect him to have over 100 yards and probably get in the end zone. So I really like Adam Thielen this week. Hopefully, let's see what he does. And, if you have him, great job on draft day.
For sure. Well, let's get into tight ends. I'm not playing no games at tight end. My guy is Jimmy Graham.
Oh, I knew you were going Jimmy.
Yeah, I know.
How many leagues you got him in?
Just a couple. But this is not due to my interest in my fantasy teams. This is just due to the fact that Aaron Rodgers owes this man a touchdown by now. And I think that week 4 is going to be his time to exploit Buffalo's defense a little bit down the seam and score his first touchdown of the year. Not going to say he's going to have a great yardage total, but definitely double-digit fantasy points. If it's a PPR league, I'm looking for him to have at least 14 or 15 fantasy points or more. Could be a multiple touchdown game. We just never know. But I look for Jimmy to have a big game and have his little coming out party against Buffalo.
Yeah, I like Jimmy Graham too. I got him in a few draft teams, DraftKings pick'ems. So I really like him this week too. A guy I think is going to have a great week. I mean, he's the number 1 tight end. It's Travis Kelce. For all the fans that, all the people that listen and tune in that don't know, KC's my team. Don't even ask me the affiliation. I've just been riding with these fools, and being a KC fan it's been a roller coaster every season. You get hype, and because they're just playing so well, they rip off 4, 5, 6 in a row, and then they drop the next 4, then they win the next 5, and then we lose in the playoffs. I mean, it's pretty it's pretty consistent. I'll just say that. It's real consistent. But anyways, I like Travis Kelce. He's been a freaking beast. Coming off that week 1, it's very forgettable. 1 reception for 6 yards. Ever since then, he's had over 100 yards receiving, 10 targets a game, and no less than 7 receptions his last 2 games. Mahomes and him look like they are clicking. He's looking to him, every other time. I mean, literally, Mahomes has just a stable of weapons. I can't even think. I haven't seen an offense this explosive, in a long time. Do the Rams and the Chiefs play this year?
Dude, I was just talking to someone that was just like, if you could go to any NFL game, what would you go to? And I was like, I can pick the teams. They're like, yeah. I was like, Chiefs and Rams. I don't care where, because that would be like the most exciting game, I think, of this year for sure.
Yeah, of course the Rams have a slight edge because they actually have a defense on the field. But the Chiefs, they're outscoring people, and I mean the defense is giving up 30 plus points a game, which is unbelievable. But the offense is averaging almost 40. So as we say, great offense always beats great defense. So
until we get to the playoffs, but okay.
True.
All right.
So let's get into our stardom sit-ems. We're gonna get into some guys that we feel like you should play, and then some guys you shouldn't. I'm gonna start things off.
Just do your stardom and sit-em, so we can just get.
Yeah, so we'll just do them all at once, right?
All right, yeah, for sure.
Okay. I'll give you 2 guys, just because I know one of these guys is your boy. You've been high on him since preseason, but I'm telling him to sit his ass down. That's Kenyon Drake.
Oh, we're starting with the running backs, huh?
Yeah, Kenyon Drake. Sit his ass down. I mean, last week was that was enough for me. I mean, if you just have no options at you just have no options at running back, I would just you kind of have to start him. But Jesus, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. They're about to play the New England Patriots. I feel like the game is going to be a straight ass whooping. I think Dolphins get shellacked by 20 plus. You're going, Brady is 1-2 for the first time since probably in that last 5 years. I can't even put his stats on it, but I say stay away from Kenyon Drake. That's my opinion. Who knows? He hopefully proves me wrong. But I know last year when he played the Patriots, he actually torched them. I want to say that was one of the last games of no, this was during the playoffs of last year. So yeah, I lost by 2 fucking yards to Spencer in the damn playoffs. I can't even remember. Yep. 2 yards. Because Kenyon Drake got negative 2 yards. So, yeah, me and him have a personal vendetta. My next guy is, I'm going to have to say Larry Fitz. Larry Fitz. I think he's been on a milk carton since week 1. He can't be found anywhere. I understand his QB situation is unfavorable, but Larry, you're talking about Pro Bowl wide receiver last year. He can't even crack. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. If you drafted Larry Fitz, you share my sentiment. In the massive headache he causes you every week. So I would honestly start a John Brown. I would start. Man, I would even go on a line and say I'd start Christian Kirk over him.
I was just about to say that. Like, at this point, I would start Christian Kirk over him, especially with how Josh Rosen's looking with Kirk. Because Rosen's getting the start.
I mean, yeah, it's just these guys, don't get me wrong, they have the talent. They're good, but I just need to see something. I mean, 1 week I get it, but 3 weeks, it's something's got to give.
Yeah. Well, was that all your sit-ems right there?
I mean, for the most part, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna do one at each position. I'm gonna give you my sit-ems right now. So my first sit-em at quarterback is Ryan Fitzpatrick, and it's versus the Bears. The Bears got a very stingy defense, very nice pass rush. They're good on all 3 levels of defense. Fitz, he didn't get exposed this past week because he did end up rebounding, but the first half was atrocious. I'm sorry. We started seeing the real Fitzpatrick again. That Fitzpatrick that the magic wears off after 6 games, and he gets that contract, and then he just goes and chills with his beard and, does whatever. And we started to see that last game, and I don't see that getting any easier against the Bears. So I say sit Fitzpatrick. If you got another option, play that. My next guy to sit is Carlos Hyde. And Carlos Hyde, yeah, dude, Carlos Hyde. He had a good game last game. I don't know what his numbers were. I think he had like 2 touches. I don't know how many 98 yards. But I'm just watching the Oakland Raiders defense play against Miami, and not to say that Carlos Hyde is probably a better back than maybe Drake, I guess, maybe, but I like what they were doing stopping the run game, so I'm saying stay away from Carlos Hyde this week, just for that reason. My third guy, or my wide receiver to sit, is actually Brandon Cooks, and I see him getting shadowed. I see him getting shadowed by Xavier Rhodes all game, and that's not going to be a good thing for Brandon Cooks' fantasy perspective. He might catch a big play, but this might be one of those Brandon Cooks games where he only has like 3 receptions for 20-something yards, And then my last guy at tight end is to sit Vance McDonald. He had the big game last game, had one of the nastiest stiff arms I've seen since Beast Mode's run on the Beast Quake. It was actually very reminiscent of the Beast Quake, but I see Jesse James getting the work this week. They kind of do some kind of flip-flop thing where Jesse James has a big game, Vance McDonald has a big game. Now Jesse James' turn to have a big game. So stay away from Vance McDonald. They're playing the Ravens, divisional foe, who plays the tight end very well. You must own Vance McDonald in a couple leagues, huh?
I got him in a league, but I mean, I gotta challenge you on this, Spence. So Vance McDonald, coming off injury, he literally has his first full week of practice, and he gets 4 receptions for over 100 yards and a touch. The guy, I mean, Jesse James is a blocking tight end. Vance McDonald, I mean, I know when I made the comparison to Gronk or a Travis Kelce, I'm dead serious. He has the athleticism. He has the playmaking ability of guys like that. I don't think. Of course, I think Gronk and Travis Kelce are worlds above him. But I'm just saying the similarities are there. I don't think. I think right now he's only owned in maybe 10% of leagues. He's more of like a waiver ad. I think the value that you can get for him right now. Well, if you have him, I wouldn't trade him. I would hold on to him, but that's just me. But I wouldn't sit him. I just wouldn't sit him. That's just me.
Well, I guess if you are just adding Vance because you need depth or need someone to play because you got a bye week, that's one thing. But if you already had, I'm just trying to allude to the fact that because he had this big game, people are gonna think that he's going to keep having these big games, or that he's gonna be like, he will put up big games like this again, I think. But I don't see it next week against
If
the
Will
Ravens
Disley
defense.
can have a back-to-back touchdown game, Vance McDonald will definitely can.
All right, well, you should just put him in your lineup and see what happens then, you know? So
I did, and guess what happened last week? I whooped your ass.
Yeah, you got the better of me last week, but this is a marathon, it ain't a sprint. And I'm coming to get the dub in all leagues, clean sweep this next week. So anyway, did you do your stardoms or no?
No, I didn't.
All right, do you want to do them? Or you want me to?
Yeah, so my stardoms, I really, really like, and I'm going to try and, stay away from, the guys I picked in the top 10 and 20. I'm going to go into, I really like Sonny Michel. Sonny Michel, he's trending up. He didn't have the best game against the Detroit Lions, but you see the progress. You see the ability. He's still coming back from that injury, that knee injury, and I think he's just going to get stronger and better as the year goes on. I think in a game where literally I think the Dolphins are probably going to be out of it by the third quarter, so they're going to lean heavily on Sonny Michel to salt away the game, and I think he has over 100 yards rushing, and has the potential to score a touchdown. So I really like Sonny Michel as one of my stardoms. As my quarterback stardom of the week, and this guy is a flyer. I think he's probably on most people's waiver wires. So if you have a bad matchup, or just a quarterback you don't trust, say like a Ryan Fitzpatrick going against the Bears, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Eli Manning. I think Eli Manning has a great game against the poorest secondary of the New Orleans Saints. Eli Manning torched the Texans last week for almost 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did lose his star tight end literally after his first reception, Evan Ingram. He's going to be out for some time. But I think that, with Odell, Saquon, Sterling Shepard, he has more than enough weapons to put up big numbers. I see him definitely having over 300 yards passing with a few touchdowns. Because, if Odell's going to go off, obviously Eli is probably going to go off as well. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over, I see him having strong QB2 numbers and potentially low-end QB1 numbers. So he's definitely my flyer for the week.
For sure.
Yeah. So have you touched on the people you want to start yet?
No. So let me do that real quick.
All right.
So my first stardom for quarterback, we'll make this quick, is Russ Wilson versus the Cardinals. I think he's just going to exploit a battered and bruised team that, to be honest, I don't know what motivation they got, really. I guess they might see, we were in the game last week, but I don't know. I see Russ Wilson taking advantage of them, scoring a few touchdowns, using his legs. Running back, we already touched on, is Melvin Gordon. I think he has a big game. 49ers, another bruised and battered team that have lost countless players to injuries. Things have just been happening around them. They're cursed or something. I don't know. And there's going to be a lot of empty possessions from the 49ers, so a lot of opportunity for Melvin Gordon to run the ball. probably ample goal line opportunities and passing opportunities. So look for him to have a big game. My wide receiver is Jarvis Landry. He's actually had 15 targets 2 of the 3 games this year. I don't really see that slowing up. I see what I saw with him and Baker. I saw a connection, and I think they're going to exploit that against the Raiders. And I see Jarvis, getting close to 10 receptions, having double-digit targets. And then my tight end is I'm going with Jimmy Graham again. Start him against the Bills, and just reap the benefits of that. Yeah, Jimmy. I'm high on Jimmy. I think he'll be a top 3 tight end this week. So start Jimmy.
Yeah, I think since I'll stay on the line with you. A guy that I think, because I think I only touched one running back and a quarterback, so I'll go into my receiver and my tight end. Then we'll get into the next part of the segment. So, a guy at tight end I really want to start this week. I think especially if AJ Green is unable to go. Sunday he said the groin wasn't going to be an issue, but even if he's a little bit hobbled, I see Tyler Eifert being a red zone machine. He actually looked in form. I mean, like he didn't look hobbled at all. He had 6 receptions for 74 yards, 8 targets. Even caught a 20-yard bomb, or not bomb, but 20-yard pass. So I mean, he's trending up ever since week 1. When healthy, he's definitely Andy Dalton's security blanket. He looks to him, and they definitely have great rapport. I think Eifert has a big game this week against Atlanta. So if you have Eifert or have on waivers, I would definitely say pick him up. And at receiver, a guy I really like. I know I touched on Adam Thielen already, but another guy I feel like that has potential to have a big game. Man, we already said Demaryius Thomas, huh? Because I'm big on Demaryius.
I am too this week.
Yeah, so I'm gonna skip on Demaryius, and I'm gonna go to man. Do you think this is actually a tough one.
You want to know who I actually think has a big game that might surprise some people? It's a hot take.
It's a hot take? Who?
Not really a hot take, I guess. But I'm saying Stephon Diggs against the LA Rams.
I think I hope so.
I think he has a bigger game than Thielen. Because he kind of was quiet this past game, and think the squeaky wheel is gonna get the grease a little bit. He's gonna work with Kirk to get open on these Ram boys. So we'll see.
Yeah, a guy I was actually gonna say was I actually like John Brown this week. I know John Brown against the Pittsburgh. Hey, I'm just saying John Brown's a guy that you could probably get off waivers. I think that if you look at his volume and how he's been utilized, he's a wide receiver 2/3. I mean, the last 2 weeks he's gotten 10 receptions, 9 receptions, over 85 yards in his last 2 games, and has a touchdown in one of those games. I think that with Pittsburgh's vulnerable secondary, I like John Brown. I like Crabtree too, but I think John Brown can stretch the field, and he's more of a big play threat. So,
I was just kidding. I agree.
Blank yourself.
And I was just kidding. I actually agree. John Brown has been pretty impressive. He's already got 222 yards and 2 touchdowns, and getting targeted a lot. I mean, the past 2 games he's got 19 targets, so converted 9 of those. So I'm not mad at that pick. I was just talking shit to you. So
yeah, I like John Brown as a So that's a
waiver
let's
wire.
Get into our waiver wire. I mean,
let's just get into 2 each because I'm pretty sure we have a lot of the same.
Okay.
So who are your? I'll just get into my 2 first. I already know who you're gonna say, but I mean, if Calvin Ridley is still on the waivers, I mean, why haven't you picked him up yet? I'm pretty sure he's probably on some people's waivers, but if he is, pick him the fuck up right now. I don't even have to get into why. I mean, the guy went berserk and has had a touchdown the past 2 games and had 3 last game, so pick him up. Then my second guy is kind of a question mark. It's Jakeem Grant or Albert Wilson. Yeah, who the fuck are they, right? They're the receivers for the Miami Dolphins that are quarterbacks too. I don't know. They've been throwing passes to each other and catching balls out of everywhere. I don't know, but they've been putting up pretty good fantasy weeks. I mean, I think both of them have scored a touchdown in 2 out of the 3 games. It's just I don't see this trickery continuing to work through the long haul of the season. But, if you're really needy at receiver or guys on bye week and you need a flyer, I would take a chance on them. So maybe pick up Albert Wilson or Jakeem Grant and see what happens.
Yeah, I like those. So I'm just gonna go straight into the guys that you got to get off waivers. Okay, first guy, Chris Ivory. Chris Ivory had a tremendous game with LaShawn McCoy out. I feel like LaShawn McCoy's is probably about, I'd say at the least 2, at the most 4 games away from getting suspended. I think he's gonna get a pretty lengthy suspension, at least 6 games. And I think Chris Ivory is the perfect handcuff. Also, LaShawn is dealing with a cracked rib, so who knows if he can even go this coming week. But I really like Chris Ivory. Of course, Tyler Boyd. You seen what he's done the last 2 weeks. He's putting up wide receiver 1 numbers. And if AJ Green's hobbled at the slightest, he gets definitely a bump up. Next is Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk has been unbelievable the last 2 games. He's definitely trending up. It looks like Sam Bradford loves him, and it looks like Rosen's going to come out firing. And I think right now Christian Kirk is their most explosive receiver and the biggest has the biggest threat for big plays, in my opinion, in that offense, besides David Johnson. And lastly, a guy I'm high on. I already have him on my team, but he is available, and he's only picked up in 13% of the leagues in ESPN, and that's Vance McDonald. I think Vance McDonald, as long as he stays healthy, is going to be a beast at tight end. I mean, he's going to be a beast. Big Ben has been just throwing the ball at least over 40 times a game. I mean, if you think about how many passes that is and the opportunities Vance is going to have to make plays, I mean, I love Vance as a potential tight end 2, low end tight end 1, maybe by mid season. So, go ahead and pick him up and thank me in 3 or 4 weeks.
Fair enough. All right. Well, now we're getting into my favorite segment of the show. That's the betting segment. Just to recap last week's picks, Sterling picked the Eagles versus the Colts. The Eagles were -6. Then he picked the Steelers against the Bucks, who were -2.5. And then he picked the Raiders at +3.5 versus the Dolphins. Unfortunately, the only one that he won was the Steelers at -2.5 versus the Bucks. I think they won by 3. So he went 1-2, bringing his total record up to 3-6. I, on the other hand, went with the Panthers -3 versus the Bengals, the Chargers +7 versus the Rams, and then the Bears -4.5 versus the Cardinals. I also went 1-2. I don't know what happened with the Bears, and then the Rams are just a great team. Only one I won was the Panthers, and so that puts his record at 3-6 and my total record at 4-5. So we're gonna give you our 3 picks for the week right now to bet on. So who are your 3, Sterling?
So my first one is gonna be the Vikings at Rams. The spread right now is +6.5 for the Vikings. I think the Vikings are gonna be playing hungry. They're definitely a lot better team than what they showed this
Wait,
past
plus 6.5?
Yeah, they're plus
Okay.
6.5.
Last time I checked, it was plus 7, but that's cool. Okay.
Hey, I'll take 7.
Because I picked the Vikings as well, and I saw plus 7, so we can do plus 7.
Plus 7? All right, I'll take it. My next game is going to be the Texans at the Colts. Texans are plus 1. I really think that the Texans have a legit shot to I'm not going to sit here and say blow them out, but win. And my last game is going to be the Chargers at 10.5 versus the Niners. I actually
Chargers
think this game
minus 10.5.
Yeah, minus 10.5. I think this one gets ugly, and I think the Chargers are on that ass.
For sure. Well, getting into mine, I'm taking the Vikings plus 7. I think they're gonna be hungry after a bad loss to what we thought was a bad Bills team. I'm not gonna say that they're gonna get the W, but I see them keeping the game very close and interesting, possibly getting a W against a great Rams team. My next one is the Lions plus 3. Personally, I do not like the Cowboys offense, and I actually really like the Lions offense. When they saw what happens when you give Kerryon Johnson a couple chances with the ball. He becomes your first 100-yard rusher since Reggie Bush. So I see him getting a little bit, higher carry load and turning it into opportunities. Also, Sean Lee is out, I'm pretty sure, for the Cowboys, and that doesn't bode well for their chances in this game. So I'm taking the Lions plus 3. Lastly, I'm rolling with the Falcons at minus 5. I like the Falcons at home in this one after a loss and against a compromised Bengals offense that doesn't have Joe Mixon. And I'm still not a believer in Andy Dalton on the road. So that's who I'm going with.
On that one?
Falcons are minus 5 on that one.
Okay. So you think they get them by double digits or at least a touch?
I think they get them by at least a touch. So
okay. I guess we'll see. I think Andy actually has a chance to come in and light it up a little bit.
Well, that's why I'm 4-5 and you're 3-6.
Yeah, that is true. So I guess I need to shut my damn mouth.
Exactly.
What's your record in fantasy though?
I plead the fifth on that, but
Yeah, I feel you. Well, hey, it's we're going into week 4. I got plenty of time to make a comeback.
No, same with fantasy. So we'll see.
And guys, we're gonna start doing our NBA coverage in the next few weeks. NBA season kicks off at the end of October, and can't wait for the NBA season. Me and Spencer both have basketball background, so we played a little football, but basketball is our heart, and I would probably, I'm speaking for both of us, but of course King James is our favorite player, and looking for him to do big things. But I'm gonna I just want to let the listeners know, if you're interested in NBA fantasy, we're gonna be covering that going forward in the next few weeks. So just stay tuned.
All right, real quick before we go, Dark Horse NBA MVP. Dark Horse, not a guy that not even
Dark
a top
Horse
5 guy.
NBA MVP.
Yes.
I don't know if it's technically a dark horse, but I'm gonna say Kawhi Leonard.
I'm gonna say Donovan Mitchell. So there you have it. You heard it here first on Fantasy Bruddas, guys. Anyways, thank you for listening.
Donovan Mitchell, that is a very big dark horse.
That is as dark as it gets.
So you think he's winning the West?
Basically, yes, I do. Anyways, that's just for shock value. We'll see. But I do love Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if he's MVP ready yet, second year, but he's going to be a beast again. So, thanks for listening, guys. Catch our next episode next week.
Thanks, guys. Take care and good luck this week.